In this video, we'll give an overview of the OpenRoads Designer Geometry Builder tool. The tool allows you to quickly define or edit geometry in a user-friendly tabular input format. You can edit existing geometry, create new geometry, edit geometry of MicroStation graphics, save the geometry to XML files. There is also tools in the Geometry Builder that will compute and generate reports. So open the Geometry Builder from the Geometry tab of either the survey workflow or the OpenRoads modeling workflow. Browse to the horizontal group and to the complex geometry tools and select Geometry Builder. Let's take a look at the dialog. Along the top row here, there are different input formats that can be used. For example, if you want to input data that's in a different format than the units in your design file, you can select a different format for your direction, for your angular format, and for your linear format. There are four locks that define how the geometry is created. First is the force tangent restriction. So as you place lines and arcs, this will force those lines to be tangent to the arcs. The next is the create simple elements lock, which will create simple elements or complex elements, where complex elements would be a chain. And the third lock defines if I want to create graphical elements, which would be simple MicroStation elements, or to create civil geometry. The last lock is if I'm creating civil elements, do I want them to be ruled or not? In the lower left bottom of the dialog box, you'll see text that describes which of the locks are toggled on. So in this case, it's place non-tangent complex civil element, and that is unruled. And you'll notice if I toggle a couple of these on or off, the text changes to describe what those locks currently are set to. The tools in the upper right of the dialog box are where you can graphically modify or create new geometry. Modify, insert lines, insert arcs, spirals, insert a vertex, or insert an entire element. Down the right hand side of the dialog box are different controls that can be used to affect the different rows. So I can insert a row, move rows up or down, fit an element to view, delete a row, or delete all. Let's use the Geometry Builder now to create a new parcel. So we'll select the Add New Geometry icon. Let's define a feature definition for this, and we'll go to Linear, Parcel Areas, and Existing Parent Track. And then we'll give it a new name, so we'll use Parcel 1. We also want to have our geometry be ruled, so we'll set the Create Ruled Civil Element lock. And now along the top where you see the XY coordinates or the begin point, you can select the begin point icon to graphically select the beginning point, or we could enter in XY coordinates if we know them. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select the beginning point and pick a point out here on my screen. Notice my XY value are set to the data point that I selected. Next step is to input our data. You'll see that the geometry was constructed as the data was input, but it's not drawn in the file yet. Notice that when I select a line in the Geometry Builder, the graphics are also highlighted so that I can see which entry that is. I can make additional edits here if needed. Also notice at the bottom of the dialog box has information about the parcel, the perimeter, the area, and the closure of the shape. I can also define or redefine the begin point here just by either entering new XY values or selecting a begin point. So, in order to place the geometry in the design file, we'll need to use the place command in the lower right. Now once I've selected place, notice the place command disappears, and now my parcel is placed into my file. After the geometry has been placed, it's good practice to save an XML file of the geometry data. Choose the Save icon or Save As icon in the upper left, and then choose a location to save it. I'm just going to use the same folder as my design file, and I'll give it a name of Parcel 1 and choose Save. Then we can close the Geometry Builder. Next, let's quickly look at how to import geometry. In this case, it's just another parcel. So let's open the Geometry Builder again, and we use the Open icon, and we'll browse to the location where we have another XML file for Parcel 2 saved. So we'll select it, click Open. Notice the table is populated. At this point, we'll also want to select or set any desired locks that we want. So I want to create ruled civil elements here, and you may also want to consider adding the force tangent restriction, since there are some arcs set in this table. So now notice that my parcel is shown on my screen. Again, it's not placed in there, and we can make any edits here at this point. We can remove lines or add lines or modify any of this data. Similar to the previous example, I can move my begin point and move this around. So I'll slide this on over to this side, and now I can actually place it into my file by selecting Place. These examples I've shown were just for parcels, but the Geometry Builder can be used for any civil geometry. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that we could also use Geometry Builder to edit existing geometry. So we'll take a look at editing the parcel that we had just previously created. From the Modify pull-down menu, we'll select Geometry Builder Edit, and we will select the existing geometry and accept it. The tabular table then becomes populated with the values for this parcel. We want to maintain some of the locks we had before, so I'm going to also make sure that I keep this geometry ruled. And the only thing I'm going to change here at this point is the bearing of this last backside of this parcel. So I'm just going to make it, instead of 4 degrees, I'm going to make it 0 degrees. And when I hit Tab, notice that that had moved. So if I zoom in, you can see the original parcel line is in the light gray, and my new is the highlighted in purple. Again, this is not placed into my file until I hit Modify, and when I do that, then now the geometry in the drawing is actually updated.